My friend Amanda and I have known each other for most of our lives. It's been around 18 years now. And in that time, we've seen each other through just about everything. We've shared silly moments and serious ones, cried together and laughed until our stomachs hurt. We've grown from young women trying to figure out who we are into wives and mothers trying to juggle a dozen things at once. It is the kind of friendship where you can show up at the other person's house with messy hair and puffy eyes, and they don't ask what's wrong straight away. They put the kettle on, hand you a mug, and wait until you're ready to talk. We are in many ways very similar people. We like the same kind of movies. We get annoyed by the same kind of things. And we even ended up working together at the same place. People at work often joke that we're like sisters, always turning up with similar stories or finishing each other's sentences. We also both married and then, strangely enough, had similar struggles trying to have children. Falling pregnant was not an easy, simple journey for either of us. There were doctor visits, tears, hopes raised, and hopes crushed, and many long conversations where we tried to comfort each other. Even when we were hurting, too, in the end, we were both blessed with baby girls. And somehow, the universe decided to tie our lives together even more. Our daughters are in the same class at school, and they play together, fight like cousins, and run in and out of each other's houses as if they are one big family. On top of all of that, we live in the same rural town on the mid and north coast of Australia, not far from each other. There's something very comforting about knowing that if anything ever happens, she's never more than a short drive away. Amanda's daughter, Hannah, is 10 years old now. She's what I would call a big soul in a small body. Her personality is larger than life. She's funny in that unfiltered way kids can be, full of energy, questions, and sudden bursts of imagination. But life hasn't been easy for her. Hannah has ADHD, generalized anxiety, and Asperger syndrome, which is a form of high-functioning autism. None of this was clear when she was a tiny baby. To everyone around her, she was just a very energetic, intense little girl. It was only when she started school about 5 years ago that things began to make sense. She was constantly getting into trouble, not because she was trying to be naughty, but because her larger-than-life personality didn't fit neatly into the classroom rules. She would talk too much, move too much, react too strongly. Teachers would call Amanda and say Hannah was disruptive, difficult, or not listening. After a lot of assessments and appointments, they finally got some answers. The diagnosis explains so much about why she did the things she did and felt the way she felt. I mention all of this because it makes me wonder about something else. I've often heard that children who are wired a little differently, children with autism, ADHD, or anxiety might be more sensitive to things that other people don't notice, more perceptive, more open, more aware of energies or presences. I don't know if that's true, but after everything that has happened around Hannah, I find myself asking, are children like her more likely to have paranormal experiences? Or at least to notice things that adults ignore or rationalize away? Amanda and her husband live in a house they had built around 3 or 4 years before Hannah was born. It's a proper family home, solid and comfortable. It's not some creepy old falling apart place that looks like it belongs in a horror movie. When you pull into the driveway, it looks completely normal. Inside, there's a hallway, bedrooms off to the side, a spare room, and then the living areas. On the surface, it's just another house in a quiet rural town. But from the moment Hannah was born and brought home, there was a sense that something in that house was different. As a baby, Hannah was very unsettled. Many babies are fussy, of course, but Hannah seemed to take it to another level. She wouldn't sleep for long. She would cry and scream for reasons no one could figure out, and there always seemed to be an edge of restlessness about her. Amanda tried everything: feeding, rocking, changing routines, white noise, different sleeping patterns. But Hannah never seemed fully at peace. Some nights, Amanda would sit in the dim light of the bedroom with Hannah in her arms, both of them exhausted, and she would get the strange feeling that they weren't alone in the room. When Hannah was around 2 years old, she started to say things that made Amanda stop and think. At that age, kids talk a lot of nonsense, but they also say things that feel weirdly serious. Sometimes Hannah would lie in bed and stare toward the bottom of it, eyes wide and sparkling. She would point into the air where, as far as Amanda could see, there was nothing. Then she would say in that innocent, straightforward way children have, "Look at the pretty balls, Mommy." Amanda would ask, "What pretty balls?" And Hannah would point again and say, "They're the pretty balls." She said they were floating there near the bottom of the bed or sometimes around the room. Sometimes she would sit on her parents' bed and look toward a certain spot and say the same thing, that she could see pretty balls. Curious and a little unsettled, Amanda asked her to describe them. Hannah told her that the balls were pretty and that they changed color. Sometimes they were pink, sometimes blue, sometimes purple. They seemed to shift and glow in ways that fascinated her. To Hannah, this was not scary. It was simply something she could see, stirred like butterflies or clouds. To Amanda, who could not see anything at all in the air where her daughter was pointing, it was something she filed away in her mind as odd, but harmless, the kind of thing you don't know what to do with. So, you just watch and listen. Life carried on as it does with school runs, work routines, and the usual worries of raising a child who doesn't quite fit the mold. Then one day, something happened that seemed small at first, but became one of those stories we still talk about now. Amanda rang me one afternoon sounding stressed. She told me that she had been making the bed and realized the diamond from her engagement ring was missing. Not the whole ring, just a stone. The setting was empty. She couldn't remember hitting it on anything or doing anything that might have knocked the diamond loose, but it was gone. Anyone who has ever lost something precious like that knows the sinking feeling in your stomach. I asked if she could retrace her steps, think of what she'd been doing, or maybe check the spots where she'd been cleaning. We both knew realistically that the chances of finding a small stone in a whole house were not great. It wasn't a huge diamond, the kind that you trip over if it fell on the floor, but it wasn't microscopic either. Still, a house has many corners, cracks, and places where tiny things can disappear forever. Amanda looked everywhere she could think of. Days passed, then weeks. The diamond did not show up. Life went on, though she was upset about it. And I honestly thought she would never see it again. At least a month later, maybe more. Amanda called me again. This time her voice wasn't upset so much as bewildered. She said she had been walking out of Hannah's room when she felt her foot hit something small on the tiles. Like she'd kicked a little pebble. She heard it make that sharp light sound as it bounced on the tile floor. She looked down, curious, and saw something shining. When she picked it up and looked at it closely, she realized it was her diamond. This wasn't some hidden corner or untouched space. This was the hallway outside Hannah's room. The same area she vacuumed and mopped regularly. She had cleaned that hallway many times since the diamond had gone missing. There was no way it had just been sitting there on the tiles for weeks without being seen, stepped on, or sucked up by the vacuum cleaner. Yet, there it was, sparkling on the floor like someone had carefully placed it there for her to find. We were both shocked, but at the time, we tried to rationalize it. Maybe it had been stuck somewhere in the bed frame or wedged under something and finally worked its way out. Maybe it had somehow been in a fold or seam and fallen onto the floor at just that moment. We told ourselves it was luck, a strange kind of luck, but luck all the same. Still, a small part of both of us tucked that detail away with a thoughtful little. Another incident came not terribly long after that, and this one was harder to brush off. One night, Amanda was up late cleaning the spare bedroom. This room is directly across the hall from Hannah's bedroom. The house was quiet. Her husband was in bed asleep, and Hannah was also asleep in her own room. The only sounds were the soft hum of the house at night and the small noises of Amanda moving things around as she cleaned. It was one of those late night cleaning sessions where you start to feel your eyes ache and your body tell you it's time to stop. She was tired and starting to think about giving up and going to bed. As she worked, she suddenly got that unmistakable feeling that someone was walking up the hallway. You know how it is when you sense someone as presence even before you see or hear them properly. She felt that shift in the air, the awareness that someone was approaching the doorway. Since she knew her husband and daughter were both asleep, she assumed it was the cat. Pets often wander around at night, so that was the most logical explanation. She glanced up toward the doorway, expecting to see the cat walk in. Instead, what she saw made her jump. Standing in the doorway, walking in with a strange, stiff, stilted step was a little girl about 5 or 6 years old. She wore an old-fashioned dress, the kind you see in photos from long ago. Her hair was styled in old-fashioned curls, the kind you get when you wrap hair in rags overnight to make ringlets. She looked like she had stepped straight out of another time. A picture from the past, walking into a modern room. Amanda watched this little girl walk into the room and literally jumped back in fright. The instant she reacted, the girl vanished. 1 second she was there, the next she was gone. There was no sound, no dissolving into mist, nothing dramatic. Just there, then not. For a moment, Amanda stood there with her heart pounding, trying to decide whether she was seeing things. She told herself she was overtired. It was late. She had been cleaning for too long. She must have imagined it. That's what many of us would probably do in her place. No one wants to think they have random children from another time wandering through their hallway in the middle of the night. It's easier to blame tired eyes and a busy brain. But the image of that little girl with her old-style dress and rag curls stuck with Amanda. Another time, there was an incident that involved both Amanda and her husband. And this one left less room, for I must have imagined it. It was early morning, that hazy time when you're half asleep and half aware. Amanda and her husband were in bed. The house was quiet and the light outside was probably still soft. Amanda was drifting on the edge of sleep when she heard the sound of little feet running down the hallway. It was a sound any parent recognizes, the quick patter of a child's footsteps. Then she heard Hannah's voice right outside their bedroom door calling, "Mom." Amanda answered automatically. Still half asleep. Yes. There was no reply. She waited a moment, expecting Hannah to come into the room or say something else. When she heard nothing, she began to drag herself up, thinking maybe Hannah needed something and had gone quiet. Before she could get up, her husband swung his legs out of bed and said he'd go check. He disappeared down the hallway. A few minutes later, he was back looking thoughtful. Hannah's still fast asleep in bed. He told Amanda. She asked him if he had also heard her running down the hall and calling out. He said yes. He had heard the footsteps and the voice as clearly as she had. And yet, Hannah hadn't moved. She hadn't gotten up. She had been sleeping the whole time. Amanda was adamant when she told me this story later. It was Hannah's voice she heard. The tone, the way she said, "Mom." It was exactly like her daughter. So, who or what came down the hallway and called out that morning. There have been other little things, too, that add up over time. Hannah once told her mom that sometimes she sees a dog sitting in her bedroom doorway. She'll glance over, see the dog there, and when she looks again, it's gone. The way she described the dog, its size, color, and general look matched the dog Amanda and her husband owned before Hannah was born. That dog had lived in the house with them, but died when Amanda was around 7 months pregnant. Hannah never met that dog in life. She only knew about it from stories and a few photos. Yet, she claimed to see a dog in the doorway that sounded exactly like that one. There are also the frustrating, mysterious, but strangely patterned incidents where things go missing. We all lose things, of course, but in Amanda's house, it happens in a particular way. An item will disappear. Keys, jewelry, some small everyday object. Amanda will search everywhere, pulling the house apart, checking under furniture, in bags, in drawers, in all the logical and illogical places. No sign of it. She will give up, annoyed and confused. Then a week later or a month later, the missing item will suddenly reappear in a very obvious spot. Not down the back of a couch or under a bed, but out in the open somewhere she has already checked several times. It's as if someone decided to return it and deliberately placed it where she would easily see it. Hannah, being the kind of child she is, also says things that make you stop and wonder what exactly she experiences when she sleeps. One day, she said to her mom in that casual, curious way children ask big questions. Do you sometimes, when you lay asleep, float out of your bed? And then you wake up and you land back on your bed. She said it as though it was a normal thing, like asking, do you ever have funny dreams? To her, it seemed like a shared human experience that sometimes when you sleep, you float up and then come back down when you wake. Amanda told me that it gave her a strange feeling, like Hannah was describing out of body experiences or astral travel, without having the words for it. To Hannah, it wasn't spooky. It was just something that happens sometimes. Then there are the smoke alarms. The smoke alarm in the hallway outside Hannah's bedroom has gone off for no reason, at least twice over the years. I don't mean going off because someone burned toast or there was steam from a shower. It would start blaring in the middle of calm normality with no smoke, no obvious cause. Both times this happened, Amanda was in Hannah's room. The alarm would suddenly go crazy, filling the hall with that harsh, urgent sound that makes your heart leap into your throat. Each time, Amanda would walk into the hallway, look up at the alarm, maybe put her hand out to test the air, and as soon as she did that, it would stop. Then, when she went back into Hannah's room, it would start again. It was like it was trying to get her attention, calling her into the hall. Both times the next day, something unfortunate and sad happened. I won't go into detail about those events because they are personal, but they were serious enough that Amanda could not ignore the timing. The pattern of the alarm going off for no reason, then stopping when she stepped into the hallway, starting again when she walked away, and then something bad happening the next day, left her wondering if the alarm was some kind of warning or sign. When you look at each of these things, one by one, the orbs Hannah sees, the reappearing diamond, the little old-fashioned girl, the footsteps, and voice in the morning, the ghostly dog, the missing, and reappearing objects, the strange floating feeling, Hannah describes the smoke alarm acting as if it has its own mind. You can sometimes shrug and say, maybe there's a rational explanation, but when you put them all together, they start to paint a picture of a house and a family that is surrounded by something more than just everyday life. And so I come back to the question that sits at the center of all this. Hannah is a special child. She has ADHD, anxiety, and Asperger syndrome. Her brain processes the world differently. She notices things that other people miss. She feels things more intensely. She reacts strongly, sees patterns, makes connections. I can't help but wonder, are children like her more open to whatever lies just beyond our ordinary senses? Are they more likely to see orbs of colored light and ghost dogs, to hear footsteps that others can't, to float out of their bodies in the night and then settle back into themselves with a bump? Maybe there is a scientific explanation that no one has found yet. Maybe it is part imagination, part perception, part something deeper. Or maybe, just maybe, there is a thin line between the world we think we know and another layer of reality. And Hannah, with her wild mind and open senses, is one of those children who can see both. Whatever the truth is, Amanda's house and Hannah's life have been full of little moments that make you stop, think, and get a shiver down your spine, even on a warm Australian afternoon.